Mr. Walton, did you make contact with aliens? Were you taken to another planet, to a mothership? How did they communicate with... Can you tell me what they look like? Can you tell me how many of them there were? Were you given food? Injection? It's important the entire world learns of your experience.
That's enough!
The teachers are alive. They're not books. They are the very living essences of nature itself.
Unbelievably powerful supercomputer that's running our reality, and we don't have a clue as to how to operate it.
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.
Broadcasting to you from a shack in the mossy creek bottoms of Arkansas. I'm Joe Root, and this is Lighting the Void. You can find us at lightingthevoid.com, facebook.com/lightingthevoid, at Lighting the Void on Twitter, and don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. We got some more stuff we're going to be giving away. That's right. And the prizes are getting a lot cooler for some reason. I've got some books I think you guys are going to like, brand new books I'm going to be giving away, and more people that I'm dealing with to give away cool stuff. And remember, this is a live show, and we are broadcasting on the Fringe.fm, TalkStream Live, TuneIn, iTunes Radio, Spreaker, and RadioGuide.fm, and many other players. The call-in number for tonight is 501-777-5631, and if you're listening to the replay on the radio station, then keep the phone on hold, okay? This is the August 8th show, and the moon is bright and full. So if you like to howl at the moon, go out, check it out, and howl at it. It is putting a little bit of a damper on the Perseids meteor shower for me out here, but I'm still catching a few flying across the sky. But a few ground rules if you do call in. We take live calls, so we don't have a screener or anything like that. So, be polite, be respectful, keep the cussing to a minimum, please, or I'll open the trap door on you. Now, if you want to support this show, we have a donation goal on the Fringe.fm. Also, you can become a Patreon or Patreon, or however you pronounce it. Just click on the link at lightingthevoid.com, and we're going to add some stuff there for patrons as well, so you guys actually get some cool stuff, too. We've got a Redbubble store on Lighting the Void, and don't worry about all that. I mean, it's coming. We're getting all that stuff coming. The Fringe.fm's got a Redbubble store, too, so the links just say store on both websites. So, yeah, the moon is not exactly 100% full here, no, Craig, but it's pretty close. All right, tonight we will be speaking with author and magician Nineveh Shadrach, and we'll be talking about summoning the Jinn and other things as well. We'll be discussing the nature of the Jinn, and this will be a show to remember for sure, I promise you. And tomorrow night, we're going to have Craig Naring from Fox Valley Ghost Hunters discussing the summer wind hauntings, and we will be hearing from some EVPs as well. He's got some pretty cool stuff to talk about, Rusty is on his way here. He's running late, as usual. I don't know what I'm going to do with him. Should I give him the boot? You guys tell me. Let me know. I love him like a brother. But, he's trying to get here right now. And next week, we're going to have Daniel Joseph. We're going to do a special time for him as he comes back, and we'll be taking your calls discussing the Daskalos teachings and the researchers of truth. Also, special guest next week, Dark Waters from the Dark Waters YouTube channel. Now, this guy's really cool. I've been listening to his stuff all day, and he's the king of horror. He has a really awesome YouTube channel. That's a good idea, Kat. I'm going to charge Rusty a penalty. I have to think about what that is, what penalty that might be. Now, I really want you guys to check out, to prepare for tomorrow night's show. If you get time, Go check out Craig Naring and the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters, because they've been on Coast to Coast and pretty much all the other shows that matter right now in the paranormal field, as well as Dark Water's YouTube channel, and it's pretty entertaining. But tonight's guest is a special deal. We've had many a magician on this show: Lon Malu Duquette, Stephen Ash. I'm trying to think of all of them. They've all been on here. And Nineveh Shadrach is going to be, he's right up there along with them. Now, I told you guys about this, didn't I? It's about to go down, folks, and I hope you're ready. We're about to be at war, and it's not going to be pretty. And I'm not a fan of war. Man, I understand, like, hey, if we're being threatened, yeah, we need to do something about it. But if you guys ever been on the playground, right, with the guy that's boastful and tells everybody how badass he really is and all this stuff, what happens to everybody out there? Everybody guns for him. Now, I know you guys have all heard this, but I really want you to remember being on the playground in junior high, right? I mean, remember being on the playground in junior high, don't you? And there was always this one guy who wanted to let you know just how badass he is, right? Well, I think that's what our man is doing. I don't know. Here we go.
Will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening, beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly, power, the likes of which this world has never seen before.
Now, that's a pretty boastful threat. I mean, because we've already dropped a couple bombs on people. So what's he talking about? And like Craig says in the chat room on the Spreaker chat, and you can join that chat if you come to Lighting the Void on Spreaker, or just search The Fringe FM on Spreaker. These guys are dug in. You don't think they're not ready? Do you not think that they're not taunting us for a reason? I know they're talking to somebody. Surely this guy's not this stupid. I think what their overall goal is to get the world pissed off at the United States of America. And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm not afraid of defending our country. We need to do that. What I am afraid of is the psychological tricks that Trump is going to fall for. And that badass guy on the playground that lets everybody know just how badass he is, he ends up becoming a target by everybody on the playground. That's the real problem. All right? And that's all I'm talking about. That's what scares me. I mean, I told you guys, we are going to go to war. I will put everything in my life on it. I mean, I understand taking out a threat, but there's something about this man, frankly, it scares the living hell out of me. And I worry for all of my fellow countrymen. But on a lighter note, let's move on. Hope I'm wrong about that. I've been wrong before. Today in history, 1937, Dustin Hoffman was born. He turns 80 years old today. Love him in Rain Man, and absolutely loved him on Hook, right? The Boo Box. That's one of my favorite shows. Also today in history, President Richard M. Nixon announced he'd resign his office. The first president ever to do that in history. Which I think that was a good thing. A new study shows about being lonely. I know some of you guys are lonely out there, especially you radio guys, and that's cool. I'm a hermit myself, but studies show, okay, being lonely won't just make you feel sad. It may also endanger your life. In fact, researchers now say that people steeped in social isolation, including those who live by themselves, and a lack of connections with others, can suffer just as much of a mortality risk as someone inhaling nearly a pack of cigarettes a day, and even more so than someone who's obese. So what they're saying is, if you don't go out and mingle in this world, get out, do something, have fun, talk to people. If you don't do those things, then you got a higher risk of cutting out of here early, okay? But I'm not totally against Trump, by the way. North Korea has accused the United States of trying to drive the situation of the Korean Peninsula to the brink of nuclear war. I don't think we've done that. After the UN Security Council unanimously adopted new sanctions Saturday in response to Pyongyang's long-range ballistic missile test last month. I mean, the measures aim to make it harder for North Korea to make money across the globe. But the target, North Korea's primary exports, include coal, iron, and seafood. And they attempt to cut off its additional revenue streams by targeting some of its banks and joint ventures with foreign companies. See, that's diplomacy. That's how you take care of stuff, right? And maybe Trump is smarter than I think he is, but I don't like to talk about politics on stuff. But when I think that the country's in danger, it's my job as a host, no matter who's listening on radio, to let you know to get ready, okay? It's not going to be pretty. The way that North Korea does war, the way we would have to win that war. I have a cousin who's in the military who actually went over there and trained against these guys, and it's not pretty how it has to go down. Okay. Let's see. All right. I'm trying to get Nineveh on with us, and I will during the break. Now, the cool thing, though, about today is in 1970, CCR's Looking Out My Back Door was released. Any of you CCR fans out there? I love them. God knows I am. I got to get a new chair. You guys hear this? Listen. Thing's squeaking like crazy. So we're taking donations for a new chair. By the way, tonight's Mega Million jackpot is $346 million. Play the damn thing. You might win it. And then if you do win it, come in. Because I know you love me, right? But I did, do a little today. I went outside and played a little bit of redneck golf. I got some old redneck clubs here. I went outside and started hitting balls around. And I might get back on in golf. I've actually hit 3 holes in one in my life, But do you know the odds that an average golfer will make a hole in one during a game are like 1 in 12,000? And I've done it 3 times, right? That's pretty crazy, right? Hey, what's up, Raymond? What's up, Dave? Yeah, if you guys want to join the chat room, I'm getting messages about how to find the chat room. It's on Spreaker. Just search Lighting the Void. Jeff, I'll send you those links here in a minute. Probably during the break when I'm not trying to do a bunch of stuff so you can get in here. But yeah, it's Lighting the Void, or just look under The Fringe FM and you'll see all the shows on the network. You find Lighting the Void, click on it and click on the live show and then click on the chat bubble and there you go. All right, speaking of America, a bald eagle was found in the trash today. And guess what state it was found in the trash today? In Florida, right? I love the bald eagle, man. I got like 5 T-shirts with the bald eagle on it. It's one of my favorite birds, right? Wildlife officials in Florida rescued a young bald eagle found with a bad case of poisoning in the trash at a waste facility. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission said Wednesday that juvenile eagle was discovered by staff at the waste disposal facility and summoned wildlife biologists to the scene. The FWC biologists were able to capture the eagle in a net and take it to the Alachua County Sheriff's Office, which was able to transfer the ailing bird to an animal clinic. The eagle, which was suffering from a form of poisoning, was later transferred to the Eye of the Eagle Wildlife Sanctuary, where it will be rehabilitated for eventual release. Who the hell? I'd like to think that no one put that bald eagle in the trash can, but, I hope it just accidentally landed in there, but I have a bad feeling that, that's not the case. All week long. Come on, man. You guys did catch the Game of Thrones show, right? Isn't that what you've been waiting for? I've been saying Dracarys in my head all week, watching this chick take out the Lannister army. Spoiler, by the way, if you hadn't seen it. You're supposed to say, hey, what's up? There's Jeff. I'm supposed to say that before I say anything about it. I'm sorry. But, man, I don't like to talk about TV shows because it's kind of boring on the radio, right? But, man, that was an epic moment in TV history right there. I don't think anyone fucking would, not agree with me on that at all. Tonight after the broadcast, Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott will be on. It's going to be a great show. Don't miss that. Make sure. And we got a lot of other great shows on the Fringe.fm, too. We got Beyond the Strange with Dave Cruz, The Paranormal Code with Rich Giordano, Shift Happens, The Kurt Green Hour, Magic 101 podcast comes on, and we got more people we're talking to we're going to put in the works. So things are just going to get better, man. It's going to get better. But all week long, man, it's been James Bond. I love James Bond movies. I don't know why. But Daniel Craig, me and Rusty were talking about this, if he can ever get his butt in here. I'm finding him by the minute. We were talking about this. Daniel Craig is my favorite James Bond, the newest one, right? Now, he's reportedly set to return as James Bond in another 2 movies. So the actor has played Bond in the past 4 films in the franchise, but had been taught not to be returning for a 5th. Not to be returning for a 5th outing after saying he would rather slash my wrists than reprise the role. However, Britain's The Sun newspaper has reported that Daniel has signed on the dotted line to head back to MI6 for 2 more films after undergoing negotiation with Bond's producer, Barbara Broccoli. That's a hell of a last name. Nice to see you, mate. Man, what happened? Did you get pulled over? Hit the mic up there, brother. Your truck wouldn't start, huh? All right. Now, Jeff, we got the Gilson report from our investigative reporter, Jeff Gilson, who's now in the chat room. Some really crazy stuff here. All right. Children thought to be female, they grow male parts at puberty, or I'll just say a penis, but I'm only going to say it once. At puberty due to a rare genetic disorder. Some weird stuff going on right now, right? Girls in a remote Caribbean village are becoming boys when they hit puberty due to a rare genetic disorder. 1 in 90 children born in Salinas in the Dominican Republic grow male private parts in a natural transformation from female to male. I don't know why that's happening. Something in the water. Catherine and his cousin Carla, guevidosis in the Dominican Republic, known as the guevidosis, which translate into penis at 12. These youngsters are referred to in medical terms as pseudo-hermaphrodites. So BBC presenter Dr. Michael Mosley traveled to the Dominican Republic to meet the guevidosi males, and he said that they are also sometimes called machimbras, meaning first a woman and then a man. It is so common to be a pseudo-hermaphrodite in Salinas that it is accepted as a third sex alongside male and female. So it's kind of weird that we're talking about transgender stuff and going through all this, and it's almost like there's some kind of crazy experiment going on out there, because that's not natural. That stuff's supposed to happen inside the womb, not outside the womb. I don't. That is insane, man. Let's see. The phenomena is explored in a BBC series called Countdown to Life: The Extraordinary Making of You. Presenters meet Johnny, 24, who is physically and biologically male, but was once known as Felicia. Johnny, once known as Felicia, I'll just call it Felicia because I can't say that name, said he was born as a girl but developed into a boy at age 7 as a child. He did not have a penis and was brought up as a girl. He said, quote, "I remember I used to wear a little red dress. I was born at home instead of in a hospital. They didn't know what sex I was. And I went to a school, and I used to wear my skirt. I never liked to dress as a girl. When they bought me girls' toys, I never bothered playing with them. All I wanted to do was play with the boys." Now, holy hell, did you see that, dude? There's a spider on my... I had it turned down, man, so while you was moving that stuff. There's a spider on my microphone, dude. Did you see that? It was right in front of my face.
I saw you bounce back, but I didn't see the spider.
Welcome to the show, Rusty.
What's up, everybody?
What's going on, man? What happened with you, dude?
Same problem with my truck that I've been having, but now it's at the end of the road.
You're driving it till the wheels fall off.
Oh, man, I've been trying to start it since 8:35.
Oh, man.
It wouldn't start for so long that my battery went dead. I had to go dig into my shop in the damn dark to find the battery charger. I had to charge it up.
Man, did you hear me reading about this?
I did.
Isn't that a trip?
That's scary.
Now, they're saying the rare genetic disorder is caused by a missing enzyme which prevents the production of the male sex hormone. The enzyme is called dihydrotestosterone in the womb. It creates what looks like a baby girl on birth. But at puberty, when testosterone flows, their voices break and they grow a male sexual reproductive organ that they become recognized as male.
Do they still have their female?
I don't know. breakthrough penny-sized nanochip pad is able to regrow organs and heal injuries. Now, this is pretty cool. Now, I'm not trying to be like Art Bell. You remember, like, Dave was telling me, Art Bell used to talk about nanotechnology all the time. But, Kurzweil is right about this. Now, check this out, okay? A penny-sized nanochip pad is able to regrow organs and heal injuries. Scientists have held a breakthrough technology capable of regrowing damaged organs and healing serious wounds with a single touch of a penny-sized pad. A little bitty penny-sized pad can just heal your organs now. Pretty trippy. The new device uses nanochips to reprogram skin cells, which then generate any type of cell necessary for medical treatment. The non-invasive procedure takes less than a second, and in laboratory trials, it was found to restore the function of badly damaged blood vessels within days. Dubbed tissue nanotransfection, or TNT. The technique works by placing a small pad of nanochips over a damaged area. A small electric current then fires DNA into the skin cells, converting them into the specific building block cells of any other part of the body, such as the arteries or even organs like the heart. Right?
That is wicked.
It promises to transform the chances of patients in need of complex reconstructive surgery, as well as those whose organs are prematurely aging. The U.S. researchers who created the technology say it could even be used as a weapon. Of course, we're going to want to use it as a weapon, right?
Oh, yeah. Either that or to fix erectile dysfunction.
No, I'm just playing. Actually, they're saying it can be used as a weapon against neurological diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Oh. They believe it will be possible to reprogram skin cells to harvest brain cells in a peripheral part of the body, such as the arm, which can then be injected into the brain. The team at Ohio State University have successfully trialed TNT on pigs and mice with a reported success rate, you ready for this, of 98%.
Wow.
A little bitty penny, like say your arm is screwed up or something, right? They put a penny on it, and it just starts growing back. What the hell? Is this not are we not living in a science fiction world right now, man? Man. That's some Star Trek stuff, isn't it?
That is.
But it's real, man.
Yeah.
In one experiment, blood flow in the severely injured leg of a mouse was restored in less than a week after the pad reprogrammed the skin cells to create vascular cells. After 2 weeks, the leg was substantially healed. Researchers plan to start clinical trials on humans next year, man. They're going fast on this thing.
That's awesome.
You know what, though? I wonder, again, really, how much is it going to cost? Let's say you wanted this done, right? You already know how much it costs for surgery.
Right.
I wonder how much it's going to cost to do something like this, Well, we can give you the penny treatment. Do you think your insurance will cover it? If everybody can just,
won't.
Not
at the beginning it won't.
Right. Now, yet again, Kurzweil spot on, man. It's happening. We're moving closer and closer to immortality. We're moving closer to immortality, man. So it's becoming a massive trip. Rusty's packing his cigarettes on the air. I'm gonna have to coach this guy a little bit more. It ain't been your afternoon?
It hasn't.
Well, it'll get better, brother, because we got Nineveh Shadrach coming on after the break.
Hell yeah.
So when we come back, who are the Jinn, right? Who are the Jinn? The Jinn, they've been called genies. They've been called demons. They've been called angels. We're going to be speaking with author and magician Nineveh Shadrach. He's had more experience with the Jinn than probably any man walking on the face of the earth. Many have researched it, but there hasn't been many who have actually summoned them. All right, so don't go anywhere. All right, when we come back. All right, we'll be right back with Nineveh Shadrach.
This is Lighting the Void Radio with your host, Joseph Roop. It's the show about truth-seeking and freeing the spirit, shattering your limited beliefs, revealing hidden truths, and much, much more.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to The Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Come own the night with us. Hi there, this is Dave Scott, host of Spaced Out Radio. Every Monday through Friday, right here on KTLK, The Fringe FM, I'm going to lead you down a path of mystery, intrigue, and suspense. So whether you've seen a UFO, had a run-in with Bigfoot or Dogman, or had ghosts running around your house, this is the place to be. Spaced Out Radio, right here on KTLK.
This is Cortana from Shift Happens, telling you to pour a glass and park your ass, because you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Shithead.
That's a nasty thundercrack right there, isn't it?
That was.
All right, we're back. So we're going to bring in our guest, Nineveh Shadrach. Let me tell you a little bit about Nineveh here. And like I said, I've had David Griffin on. I've had Lon Milo Duquette on, Stephen Ash. I love having magicians on the show because I love studying this realm. And tonight, man, I'm really excited. Now, Nineveh Shadrach was born and raised in the Middle East. His Lebanese father was a famous engineer in Saudi Arabia during the 1970s and an initiated Sufi and practitioner of the Middle Eastern magic tradition. Nineveh's entry into the craft began at an early age, and he has been a teacher in the West for over 25 years. He is the author of Magic That Works, Practical Training of the Children of Light, Love, Healing, Prosperity Through the Occult Powers of the Alphabet, the Occult Encyclopedia of Magic Squares, the Tree of Life, and Magic Squares, Ancient Conjuration of Power, Practical Guide to the Berhatiah, and he can tell me how to say that right, and the chief translator of the Book of Deadly Names, and the Grand Key of Solomon, Red Magic, Harut and Marut, and an authored thousands of pages of digital content spanning nearly 20 reports. Nineveh, man, it's a real pleasure to have you this evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty fine. Thank you, bro.
Man, it's good to have you. I know it's early over there in the Philippines right now, so I really appreciate your time.
No problem.
Now, how long have you been studying and practicing the art of magic, like as a whole, or when did you first get interested in it? How did it, I have to ask this, how did this come about?
Well, the stories of magic run in my family, but specifically in the sense of their encounter with the Jinn. And they started long before I was born, and since my mom was a young girl. So it's the story runs in the family for a long time.
Right.
And as I grew older, obviously I became more interested, especially as, more things began to happen to me, and I began to see things and experience things. So by the time I was, in early teen years, that's when things began to get really serious. My first book was Set of Knowledge, or Shams al-Ma'arif, by Albuni, which is a very famous medieval author. And I think this book is probably the most famous Arabic occult text, even more famous than the Picatrix or Riyad al-Hakim. And by the time I was 17, I received my initiation in the Golden Dawn, and from then on, I just kept going.
Oh, that's so cool, man. Yeah, I've read about a lot of things, that you talk about, like the Picatrix and things like that. A lot of people are afraid of, but it seems that your, I don't know if it's your curiosity or your passion, that just keeps you moving on and on, because a lot of your material is a bit more, I would say, thorough and advanced than some of what you see on the out in the world of the occult text and things. Do you find that, do you ever get afraid at all of this, or are you excited about the more you find about?
Well, I'm one of those people that gets motivated by fear and use it as a driving energy. So it has a reverse effect on me. So I'm kind of a bit of a thrill seeker that way, but it's within the occult frame instead of jumping from an airplane with a parachute. The thing is this: the more I begin to, the more I practice the occult, and the more I perform magic, and the more I experiment with different things, both ancient and new, the more I realize that really we're on the cusp of rediscovery. One of the things that has become kind of too common is the belief that all there is already in print. That if you want to know the occult or you want to study magic, then you just hit your bookstore and anything there is to know is already there. Or you go on the internet and download 500 ebooks and all there is to know is already there. And my personal experience is that this is far from the truth. That everything we know in all our books, in all our research, historical or modern, is only about a fraction of all that there is to know about our craft. In other words, we're excited by our discovery of the wheel, not realizing that further down the line we're going to be building starships and going to the moon. So my personal goal is to continue to push these boundaries and basically get to this point where we are past the common practice, past the accepted boundary of what is and what isn't possible, or what isn't the occult. So to do that, you have to tread dangerous grounds. But they're only dangerous because they're unknown, right?
Sure.
As far as personal danger, when I first began practicing the craft, and I began reading the books, and I began doing the rituals, and I began doing all the stuff, I was doing it in Saudi Arabia because that's where my family was working. I'm not Saudi, but that's where I basically ended up living. And the thing about it there is that you know already, the moment you pick your first magic book, the moment you light your first candle or do your first spell, that if anybody finds out about it, your head is going to get severed from your body.
Right.
That there is no other consequence but death. So you know that everything you're doing has death penalty attached to it. Yeah. So if you don't want to lose your head, you burn the books and quit. So every occultist in Saudi Arabia is doing this, knowing very well tomorrow could be the last day of his or her life. So if you don't fear death to begin the craft, you're not going to fear death in the craft.
Wow. Yeah, we were talking about that last week. Yeah, that's a real thing over there. Then that's fascinating.
Exactly. Right. So you have to have balls of steel to even do this in the beginning in Saudi Arabia. And here, in North America, it's just a quick trip to your bookstore. Nobody really cares. Maybe your parents may look at you funny. Your friends may wonder why you're doing this weird woo-woo shit. Mm-hmm. But in Saudi Arabia, you're basically facing death. And every year they execute occultists in the middle of the main square for everybody to see.
Yeah, and they do it in a way that really they do it in a way that tries to put fear into anybody else who's going to do it. I don't know if it was last year or not too long ago, they buried a woman up to her waist and pelted her with stones until she was dead.
It's usually for adultery, not practicing the craft.
Yeah, okay. That still, to me, is... Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We all have different cultures, But in the Philippines, is it accepted there? Is everything okay in the Philippines with it?
Oh, yeah, it's fine here. Nobody here really cares. There's a huge amount of occult undercurrent in the Philippines. The occult undercurrent dates back to a very, very long time. But with the advance of the American, recently, and the Spanish prior, it has shifted a lot to a more Western take. So most occultists in the Philippines tend to be more on the Wiccan, pagan, GD style, ceremonial magician style. The native practices is not as common in the cities. You would have to go far away in the forested areas or villages and try to find somebody who's still a native healer. But even then, you will find their use of Latin and Catholic symbolism has been incorporated, right? The Philippines has a very interesting story about an actual city in the forest that can only be accessed through magical means. And there's legends of, transportation or not, by vehicles even, go into the city and then disappear to provide kind of like goods and stuff, and that it's shrouded. Like you cannot see the city from the air. You have to access this like tree or hidden route, and then you'll be taken to this area where it's full of these beings or these creatures. And this story, many ways, dovetails with the ideas in Arabia of the cities of the Jinn, like, city of Iram and places like that. So it's many of the things here in the Philippines similar to the stuff that you will find in the Middle East when it comes to Jinn lore, but they give it different titles, obviously, and different names in the area.
Right. The Jinn is a fascinating subject, and one that you talk much about. It seems like they've been demonized, angelicized. Kind of people have, talked about, they're in between. On other radio shows, they've been known to harass people, according to what these people are saying. There's a lot of talk and a fear put into Jinn magic, and yet here you are today, in good health as far as I know, standing here still pursuing this. Can you tell us a little bit how the Jinn is different from all of the other things like Golden Dawn magic and regular Wicca and things like that?
Well, I think what you really asked me two different things. You're asking me about the Jinn, and you're asking me about Jinn magic. Mm-hmm. The Jinn themselves, the word Jinn is, it has its own mystique, really, because of the Western fascination with Orientalism. And you will see it also in the stories of Aladdin and the idea that these beings can grant wishes and all of this stuff. In reality, it just means hidden, meaning that the Jinn are beings that are invisible to our eye spectrum.
Okay.
But the Jinn themselves, right, the idea of the Jinn transcend culture. You will find them east, you'll find them west, you'll find them north, and you'll find them south. There's almost no nation on this world that doesn't have legends related to the Jinn. They just use different titles or different names for them. I'll give you just a recent example of cultural differences here. Now, the Jinn are often portrayed by two different symbols. One is a winged walking serpent, and the other is a serpent without wings or legs. So what serpent do you know of that has wings and legs? If you take a look at lore, you will quickly find that the most logical parallel would be a dragon.
Right.
Okay. And then the other one is without wings or or feet, and that's basically the serpent, that we're familiar with, the basic snake.
Right.
Now, if you take back a look at cultures, you will see constant references or, symbolism incorporating both the snake and the dragon. And this is one of the many symbols of the Jinn that has found its way into universal cultural ideas. Now, in Arabic lore, many of the Jinn kings that appear in Arabic books are just simply colors. Like, you have the great king, Al-Ahmar. Well, what does Al-Ahmar mean? It means red. The other one is Al-Madhab. What does Al-Madhab mean? It means gold. Or golden.
Okay.
So there is definitely, a lot of, you have Maimun, which is, Maimun appears in a lot of text, east and west. He appears in Goetia as a Maimun. But you have Maimun al-Aswad, meaning Maimun the black. You have another one that's named al-Azraq, the red. You have another one named al-Akhdar, the green. Why the colors? They obviously don't look green or red or any of this. This is the same idea why we have in ancient mythology different colors for our dragons. We have the red dragon, we have the white dragon, we have the gold dragon.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
Now, if you go to Vietnam, for example, the Vietnamese will tell you that what happened was on this mountain top, the gold dragon appeared, and the gold dragon, basically, with the help of the fairies, basically, which is another reference to Jinn, the fairies. With the work with the fairies, he produced basically an egg, and from the egg hatched 500 people, and those people became the ancestors of the Vietnamese. So all the Vietnamese are consider themselves hybrids, part human, part dragon.
Wow.
Okay.
That's cool.
So if you take a look now at the Arabic literature, you will see references to the Jinn marrying people and producing hybrids, half Jinn, half human. So by that narrative, you can argue that the Vietnamese believe they are half descendant of Al-Madhab, the Golden Tribe, the Golden Dragon. Right?
Right, that's just really cool. I did not know that at all.
Yeah, I've never even heard any of this.
That's awesome.
So this stuff you can find universal. I mean, if you take a look at Merlin, the great wizard, what does Merlin's symbolism is he contains in himself, or his blood is partially the blood of the dragon, the Pentadragon. So he's half Jinn Merlin. He's able to do all this magic because he has the blood of the Jinn in him, right? So you will see this again and again in many of the old cultures under different titles and different names. But if you know what to look for, you will find the references.
Well, it seems that these references are continuing even today. I don't know if via subconsciously or what. I mean, if you look at Game of Thrones, the dragon-born lady, Daenerys Targaryen.
That's right. And if you take a look also, when you realize that the lore of the fairies and the fae and the lore of the elves in Europe is also parallel to the Jinn, you will see how our fascination with those goes. We find them in our movies, we find them in our games, we find them in our literature. There is almost nothing, I don't think a year passes by without some form of mass entertainment that doesn't have Jinn-based symbolism in it, that the masses simply have no idea. They're just watching this for entertainment purposes, not realizing they're being exposed in some way or form to the Jinn lore, right? Without the word Jinn being mentioned, that's just not circled on top of their heads, but it's there. You can see it.
Yeah, almost like a wink.
Yeah, almost like a wink. That's exactly right. Almost like a wink.
Now, there's an entire chapter in the Quran that concerns them, right? According to the Muslim faith, humans were created from clay and water, and angels from a special and pure spiritual light, and Jinn were created from the smokeless fire, or the essential fire, plasma in modern terms.
Right.
They say they're most invisible to most people except under certain conditions. However, animals, especially dogs and donkeys, are able to see them. Do you find that animals in your practices can see them better than we can?
Well, I don't know about donkeys. I have to take your word on it. I've never had a donkey around, so
right on.
No.
Hey, I'm just reading the text here that was sent to me.
If so, that would be one smart ass.
Yeah, I get it, Rusty.
One smart ass.
Right.
Well, I can tell you a story though. A few years ago, my partner was walking the dog, which is, it's kind of like a beginning of a bad pub joke. She was walking the dog, and she noticed the dog stopped walking, and he began to shiver and shake, and in complete fear and fear paralysis. And she was like, "What's going on with my dog?" And she looks up, and she sees walking across the street from her what looks like a person, but small, and kind of hunched over. And that person is not human. He was almost like a walking dark shadow. And she felt complete fear from encountering this being. And he just kept walking slowly on the street like nothing is happening. And then she began to recite protection magic basically against this thing because it was terrifying her. And he increased his speed, almost like he began to run, and then poof, it vanished. It wasn't there anymore.
Holy shit. That's crazy, man.
Yeah. And of course she came back and she told me about it, and she's like, "What the hell did I just see?" Right?
Yeah.
Now, But the dog saw it first.
Right. That's the whole point of the story right there. The dog caught it first.
Saw it first.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. It's my hypothesis that these beings are more on a different light spectrum than our eyes can see. That they are closer to the ultraviolet spectrum. That's also the spectrum where plasma, X-ray, and radiation tend to fit in.
Okay.
Now, scientists have discovered that very young kids, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes can actually spot things in the ultraviolet spectrum.
There we go again, man. Children,
huh?
We talk about this all the time, how children see things that adults cannot.
Yeah, because of this close to, but then as they get older, that UV capacity disappears in the kids. Now they're just like everybody else. They cannot see in that spectrum anymore.
Right.
Now, this is not universal. Not all kids can do it. But some can, for some reason, have this capacity just near UV ray spectrum. So I've been trying to figure out if I can actually capture the Jinn using UV. And then I realized why ghost hunters fail to ever really capture them. And part of it is because, A, they use infrared for the majority. And number two, which is exact opposite spectrum, really. And two, because actual UV lenses that will capture UV light is like a $10,000 a pop.
Yeah.
Which means most paranormal investigators put this in the back or the bottom of their list when they're buying their equipment. Because they cannot justify a $10,000 lens.
You guys, you ghost hunters out there, I hope you're taking notes on this. You might crack something listening to Nineveh talk about this. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right. It's expensive.
You know? Yeah, it's expensive. So don't use it, right? It's not part of their. It's not part of their usage. So I mean, I can't afford one either. I've been trying to kind of makeshift one using a kind of a Russian lens, an old Russian lens, but until you really have a good solid UV lens and a UV source, which is dangerous though because it will hurt you. You have to wear a hazmat suit when you're using it. You really cannot fully investigate the Jinn because they're more in the UV spectrum, which is why they tend to produce radiation when they're present. If you take a look at Arabic texts, they always tell you when the Jinn is there. We're not talking, like in a mirror or vision, but when the Jinn is there, you stand about 8 feet away from it. Because just being physically close to it will hurt your body. And they don't explain why in the Arabic text. They just say if you're very close to the Jinn, you will basically get sick. You have to stay far from it, a few feet. 8 feet or more. And that would make sense if they produce radiation. And if you're very close to that radiation, you will, of course, get sick.
Oh. So have you felt this heat yourself from the Jinn?
Of course. This is one of the first signs of their presence, is heat. I mean, okay. The Jinn can produce heat, and this is probably why they're often mistook for fire elementals. Okay. But in reality, the Jinn are not really fiery in the sense of fire. And many of them actually reside in oceans. Or nearby oceans, or they build their towns under oceans or areas of that. So if you go near the cities in the ocean, you end up experiencing, they're not protected. You can't really access it very well. So there's been some speculations the Bermuda Triangle may have been a city of a Jinn underneath for a while. Anyway, not to go there right now. What?
I was thinking that when you said that they build underwater cities, I was questioning
Yeah, well, it was a manuscript. Yeah, there was a manuscript called The Green Island. And The Green Island was an Arabic document, and it was translated. It talks about the story of this guy who got kidnapped by the Jinn, taken to their city. He sat in their city for a long time, and then he was brought back to his family. And he drew a kind of a map and where he thinks he was taken and all of that stuff, and the landmarks he saw along the way of his trip. And then modern researchers used it and applied it to the old maps during his time, and then they converted it to a modern map, and they located the island somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, man.
Does this not make you guys want to go out and grab this man's books?
There's like so. Just
This kid is full of knowledge, man.
Yeah, just a few minutes we've been talking to him. He's linked.
He's linked a lot of stuff we've talked about, together.
Yes,
well, I wanted to ask you this though, and it's kind of a broad question. Since now that I'm understanding that the Jinn have been, are many different things, or have been interpreted as many different things. There is a nomenclature though that the Jinn are dangerous. I mean, in your experience, are they dangerous?
Well, do you want the frank answer?
Do what now?
Okay, if you want the honest answer on this, I would say that on an individual level, on a personal level, a Jinn can be your best friend or your worst nightmare.
Oh.
And on a racial level, I would say the Jinn are the only thing on Earth right now that can literally annihilate the human race in 24 hours.
So they're dangerous.
Damn.
I mean, from a strictly definition, they're dangerous.
However, they have not done so. So we need to define danger as potentiality versus actuality.
Sure.
So are the Jinn potentially dangerous? Extremely. Are they actually dangerous? Depends on which one you're working with and what relationship you have with. So you can have a Jinn that is completely friendly. You will even might fall in love, when that Jinn is around. It's like very enchanting, magically speaking. On the other hand, you can have a Jinn that can turn your life into a living nightmare. So it just depends. And I think the reason that people are afraid is because they feel like they can't control them.
Right.
And they're scared of things they can't control. And when it comes to magic in particular, we thrive on the belief that we can control. Everything in magic, especially Western occultism, is focused on the idea of will and the idea of making everything to conform to our will. But when things conform to your will, you're basically the one in control. So it becomes an extension of our desire to be in complete control of our environment. And the Jinn comes in here and throws all this out the window, and of course you're afraid, because you're like, okay, then now what do I do? Right?
Yeah, right.
But just because it's there, and just because you can't control it, it doesn't necessarily mean you're in danger. It may very well help you and save your life. Right. So you have to have a bit more of a neutral position, and kind of like, okay, you're here. Are you friendly? Are you hostile? What do you want? What can we do? Can we become friends? What's in it for you? What's in it for me? You basically build a kind of mutual relationship built on respect. And when you do that, suddenly the fear factor disappears. Because you get respected and you respect, and there's no need for fear to come into the equation. But if you're trying to control something with all your might and will, and you realize you can't control it, fear comes in the picture.
Right. It's kind of like playing with fire, but fire has laws and rules, and you respect it, and
That's
you don't.
right.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. And it also has to do with what do the Jinn care about and what the Jinn don't care about. I mean, okay, for example, if you summon, let's say, a Jinn from the Baduh tribe, okay, and you are, a good person, and you're a loving person, and you say, look, I need help in areas of love, or I have areas of romance, and can you help me out in that? The Jinn might say, sure, I'll give you a boost, whatever. On the other hand, if you call, for example, Maymun, and you are Maymun, and you say, look, I need help in a love spell, your life will turn to shit really fast. because that particular genie just hates this thing. He doesn't like the idea of love spell. So calling him for it will result in bad consequences. So you got to know who you're calling and why you're calling. And so the best thing to do in the beginning is just build relationships. Not worry about what you will do for me. And a lot of, magicians begin with this idea. What's in it for me? What will you give me? What will you do for me? And it's better to just start with, can we just know each other better? Build a friendship. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, that kind of relationship, and you take it from there.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating stuff. That's really cool. And, we're going to take a small break, and we come back. We're going to ask a few more questions to Nineveh Shadrach discussing Jinn. Don't go anywhere, guys.
Yeah.
That's a much better thunder crack there. All right, we're back. I'm Joe Roop with Rusty Pate. This is Lighting the Void. We're on KTLK, The Fringe FM, thefringe.fm, and we're speaking with author, magic and occultist Nineveh Shadrach, and we were discussing the Jinn before we went to the break, and we asked him if the Jinn were dangerous, and he gave us a very good answer. And so, yeah, danger is danger, right? Things are dangerous. So you need to know what you're getting into. But Nineveh, another thing that I was going to talk to you about is a lot of people in the occult community, and I talk to many people on Facebook groups and, pretty much all over the web. They're like, they're clip off or they're demons, stay away from them. Don't mess with them. And they're totally different from what we would call demons of the Goetia, are they not?
Not exactly. This is, again, a very limited view that you're hearing. Okay. If you recall the story of the elves, you're familiar with two kinds of elves. The first are the dark elves, who tend to kind of live underground, and they tend to be more evil a little bit in their stance, a lot more hostile to humans and things like this. And then you got the high elves. They're blonde, they're gorgeous, they're beautiful, they're magical, they're friendly. They're full of science or magical kind of abilities and stuff like that. Advanced civilization. The thing is, they're very hard to come across. They're very hard to find and locate. They hide themselves away. They close themselves. So in Jinn lore, you have something very similar. You have what we call the underworld Jinn. Now, in Albuni's book, he makes an interesting point, and he says that the great 7 kings of the underworld Jinn kingdom tend to put their power centers near Tartaros. The Greek is not my language, so I'm not mispronouncing it, but Tartaros or Tartarus is basically the abyss of the Greeks.
Right,
the bottom of the hell, right? The last point in hell. The prison of the gods that have fallen.
Wow.
So that's where the 7 Jinn kings tend to place their power centers. But then you have the other kingdoms of the Jinn. Well, they're not connected to those. They're more elevated in status and nature. But when you take a look at your magic books, you almost never see their names mentioned. The focus always tends to be on calling the underworld Jinn kings. Right?
Not to interrupt you, but did you say the 7 Jinn?
Yeah, 7 Jinn kings.
7 Jinn kings.
There's another thing we see in a lot of stories and stuff today. Yeah, it's that number 7. But you're saying that...
If you take a look, remember we talked about dragons as being symbolism of the Jinn kings, right?
Right.
And we talked about one of the Jinn king leaders being Al-Ahmar, the red one, right? Now, if you take a look at the book of Revelation in the Bible, you see references to a red dragon with 7 heads.
Yeah, coming out of the sea.
Yep.
7 kingdoms. Well, the 7 kingdoms are the 7 kingdom of the Jinn, who are all under the domain of the Red King.
Wow, so this goes way back then, doesn't it? I mean, it's...
Yeah, well, but why would it be under the one king? There's 7 heads of one body, the red body, but they're separate kingdoms. The only way this would work is if the Red King himself has conquered these other kingdoms from the Jinn.
Damn.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah, that is.
Now, one of the Jinn kings is named Shamhorish, and he is considered to be the judge. He corresponds often to Jupiter. He's considered a pious Jinn king, a devoted Jinn, a nice guy, so to speak. But he's still one of the 7 kings. Well, a lot of magicians as of late have not been able to contact him or work, or all the magic that used to belong to him, talismans, spells, whatever, has all ceased to work. It's all crashed. None of it worked. And now they've come to the conclusion that he was killed or has died. So now one is down, right? So, and then there's a couple of more now that are not responding or answering. And nobody knows why those kings are just now failing to respond. Well, one possibility is that maybe there's a war going on between them, and one kingdom is conquering the other ones. But this is a hypothesis, obviously. There's no proof, to back it up. But it would fit in with the whole story if the red dragon with 7 heads. One kingdom conquering all other kingdoms.
Man, that's wicked. That's wicked.
Okay, to kind of go back, you were asking about demons, right? So if you take a look at all the books, Arabic or Hebrew or Latin, any of those texts, you'll find that when it comes to magic, the emphasis has been on working with demons, right? And many of these demons are actually underworld Jinn. So they're not necessarily the benevolent kind. Yet, in all the grimoires and all the texts, they all seem to be portrayed as being useful.
Yeah.
Okay? Right? Okay, now I'm going to flip this on a little bit. And I know some of you listeners are not going to be happy with my answer. But we're here to discuss truth.
That's right.
People. If you take a look at the story of Solomon, Solomon's legend in the Middle East, especially among the Arabs, consisted of 2 parallels. First, his temple was built by the Jinn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in Arabic lore, the Jinn themselves were the one who was fashioning the pottery, building the walls, cutting the stones. They were physically doing labor to build that temple for King Solomon. Okay. The other story part was he took the demons, or some of the bad guys, 72 of the bad guys, and he bound them in prison. Okay?
Right. In a vessel,
right.
Yeah.
In a vessel, right. He bound them in the ocean, no less. Okay, so, now, the assumption has been, in the Arabic text, and in the Western text, books like the Key of Solomon, Goetia, any of this, that that Solomonic magic entails summoning the same type of demons, sort of, Jinn, bad Jinn, that King Solomon had bound and thrown into the vessel for personal benefit. But this is opposite of what he did. The story did not say that he called these 72 for help and assistance. It says he bound them and restrained them and threw them into the ocean. Meaning Solomonic magic did not involve calling these demons. Yet, that's what all the grimoires and the texts are talking about. They've reversed the story of Solomon. Okay? Now, who would want to do that? Who would want to reverse the story of Solomon?
I was just about to ask you that, actually.
Well, it would be the same ones he bound.
Right.
Because what better revenge could you have against your capture and the guy who imprisoned you, then instead of teaching magicians to bind basically these beings, you tell them, "Oh, you summon me in the name of Solomon, and I will help you." But they never did help Solomon.
Whoa. Okay, so are you saying that? And I know this is maybe a theory. I don't know if you think it's fact, and that's not important to me because my head is spinning right now.
Yeah.
Are you saying that it's possible that these bad, or I would say malevolent Jinn in the depths or whatever, change the stories so that we would help release them? Possibly
that we would work with them. They tarnish Solomon's name by associating him with this, and get magicians to work with them, instead of following Solomon's footstep of binding them. You're doing the opposite of what Solomon is doing.
Right.
Now, Solomon did work with the jinn, but it was different jinn that he worked with, not the ones that were bound. He didn't draw. The story says that he had the ring in his hand, and by this ring he commanded the jinn.
Yeah.
The story did not say he erected magical circles and summoned incantations and summoned demons. It said he called upon the jinn with the ring and they obeyed him. But then, when he bound those demonic jinn or demons, which one did he bind and how did he know which one to bind? In all the old grimoires, it was the jinn themselves that introduced the bad guys. In the Arabic text, it was the jinn Fikatush. Basically, Solomon said to Fikatush, tell me who are the bad guys in your race. Which one of your race you would like to see bound? And Fikatush said, okay, I will give you the list of all the malefics, all the ones that thrive in hurting humans, and I will introduce them to you one by one. And those are the ones that Solomon bound, because they were dangerous. But he didn't know about them. The jinn told him about them, meaning that a spectrum of the jinn, a group of the jinn, turned in another group of the jinn and said, this is the bad group, please bind them. And the other group were helping build his temple. But then as we move forward in after this bad group was released, now the magic is centered on calling them, and the names of the good jinn that may have helped Solomon build his temples are completely erased from the Arabic text and the Western text and other literature. We don't know who they are anymore. They're gone from our lore. The ones that were bound has become dominant, and the ones that were helping Solomon have disappeared from our literature. It got switched.
Which makes a lot of sense, man. It really does. I mean, if you look at the nature of the world and spirituality, especially when it comes to magical things, as many occultists have gone down in a flame,
Yeah.
Wow.
It got switched. So, people say to me, Nineveh, why don't you work the demon? Why don't you do Goetia? Why don't you work the underworld? Why don't you do this? They think that maybe I'm being a goody two-shoe and a light fluffy. It's nothing to do with that. I am working with the jinn who were helpful in the beginning to basically people like Solomon and to other humans, and avoiding the ones that were hostile. I don't need that. It's not necessary. I don't need that kind of grief.
It makes me wonder if some of the bad jinn plotted on the good jinn.
Of course.
And instead of the bad ones being imprisoned and bound, if they got all the good ones imprisoned and bound. And still helped out to make it appear like they were good.
Now,
well, I don't know about that, because the names in the jinn that were listed as being bound were listed in the Book of Deadly Names, and I have known about more than one magician who tried to do the opposite again of binding them and call those jinn, and they barely escaped with the skin intact. So. And it's kind of funny because I think some guy just took the names and made a grimoire out of them and called it Smokeless Fire. And I should probably kind of give you an idea of how that started, just for interest factor.
Now Rusty's asking me what a grimoire is, and I know there's some people out there that don't know what that, but essentially, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Nineveh, it's an ancient or it's an old text that, you can just say an old magical text, but maybe you can help out the audience with that.
Yeah, it's an old magical text, basically, with instructions in it and how to do magic. It's like a cookbook,
Gotcha.
So the way this worked out, the book is, I'm trying to mention the story because I know that book now has been converted to a evocation manual. And when I put it out, I called it the Book of Deadly Names to warn people that even so this book is in English and they should read it and become familiar with it, that they shouldn't turn these jinn into evocation spirit guides or whatever. But now it's been turned into it by another book by, I think the book is called Smokeless Fire. Not that I'm trying to plug it or anything.
Right.
And the way this happened was a friend of mine called me and said he has a female friend that he believed was being possessed. And he wanted me to go check her out and if she's possessed, let him know if she's possessed, and to kind of do an exorcism and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, fine, I will do that, but in return, you will help me get into the library at the university, and I can dig up some old books there. And we went to see her. The woman, I don't know what was going on with her, but she became a born again Christian, and I didn't sense anything particularly evil or dark. Just that she's undergone some kind of psychological stress, and there were some psychological issues popping up. So we went to the library, and I began to look through books, and all I found were basically Western texts. Many of them are not very deep in the occult. Some are more modern text. Yeah, I'm just browsing. When we're about to leave, and as we're about to leave, I by accident, a bunch of books fell on the floor.
Yeah, by accident, quote, accident,
yeah,
right.
by accident, a bunch of books fell on the floor. So I kneeled down to pick the books up, and one of them was Spanish. And I was like, cool, Spanish. And then I opened the book. Oddly enough, the pages were not Spanish, they were Arabic. And I was like, this is an Arabic text. So I began to flip through the pages, and it was the story of King Solomon binding these 72 evil jinn. And I was like, fascinating. This is another take on the Solomonic lore. So I stood up, and then behind the guy with me, I saw with my naked eye a 6-foot-tall, shadowy figure with red eyes staring at me.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, shit.
That's what I'll be thinking, too, man.
Yep.
Oh.
And then he stared at me, and I looked into his eyes, he looked into mine, and then poof, he vanished.
Right on.
And I was like, what the hell?
I'm thinking that dude, maybe that was the entity that knocked the books over for you, maybe.
Yeah, that did knock the books over. He wanted me to have the book. But now I don't have a library card, so I couldn't take the book out. So I went into the main desk, and I said, can I take this book out? He says, well, are you a student? I said, no. Well, you need to pay for a membership. You need to pay this much money. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't have the cash, to pay all that.
Sure.
I wasn't counting on this. He says, well, your other option is to photocopy the book. So I went to try to photocopy the book. It wasn't working. I came back down, and then the employee of the library came with me, and he went from photocopier to photocopier to photocopier, and none of them worked.
Wow.
Yeah, they just happened to not work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said to me, come with me, please. And I followed him, and he decided to go through the employee office section. And so we bypassed all the metal detectors and all the security cameras and everything, because he took me into the employee in the back section. And then he took me to a side door. We went to the side door. And then he put me outside the library on the campus floor. So this is where people are walking down the street to the campus. And then we went across another building. And then was the library out in there was the photocopier out in the open. And he said, this photocopier works. Use it. And he left me there by myself with my friend and the book.
Man, that's some
my friend
mystical
looks at
stuff.
me and he says, my friend looks at me and says, what are you doing? I said, I'm photocopying the book. He said, why are you photocopying the book? Let's just take the book and go.
Yeah, right.
I said, we're outside. There's nothing. We can just get in our car and drive.
Right.
The employee literally just bypassed security and put you outside.
Yeah.
You don't have to photocopy anything. You can just take it and go.
Yeah.
And I knew right then it was the shadowy figure that did all this.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I am not beginning this with stealing.
Right.
Because I knew that this would be theft, and I knew that this Jinn didn't give a shit if I'm stealing it. He just wanted me to take the book and take it home.
Yeah.
And I said no, and I photocopied it, and I returned it to the library. And we began the translation process, and all kinds of things began to happen afterward. There were growling noises in the house, and scratches would appear on the wall, like a bear had tore the wall half open. The artist who I hired to work on the drawings had visions and saw things with his naked eye, kind of scared him. People would drive up to my house and drive back away because they got scared just being outside my house. I mean, that was some serious mojo in that book.
Yeah.
And then I put a warning. This is for educational purposes. Please do not use them. Right? They are not safe to use. Do not use these beings.
But it does show that what the Jinn that are around you and around all of us, what they're willing to do to escape their means, or get what they want to get done. And I was going to ask you about that. You said earlier that the Jinn didn't care or whatever. When it comes to morality, like the morality that humans have, do you find that these entities have morality, or are they just programmed to just kind of do what they are in control of?
Well, I mean, this was an underworld one, so obviously he didn't care if I stole it.
Right.
But somebody who's not underworld who probably would care, and he would say, "No, what are you doing? Don't steal." So it has to do with which group you're working with, right? Which section you're working with. Those figures that appear like dark black shadows with red eyes, or shadowy figures, or sometimes even shadows wearing robes. And those are the underworld, the dark elves.
Yeah, I know. Art Bell used to talk about that.
Morality, right?
Right. Yeah.
They don't have the same morality we do. But if you're working with a celestial Jinn or a Jinn that's good and decent, that won't pass. This wouldn't be allowed. So it really has to boil down to your choice. What do you want to work with? But if you're working with most of the text out there, most of the grimoires and the magical books, whether it be Arabic or English or Hebrew, most of the stuff on the market, the majority of them are basically underworld, right?
Okay.
So whether you're using the Goetia or using whatever, you're still working the underworld. And before we started with this whole, these are demons, we must avoid them. Then it became, they're useful demons. They're demons that can help us. And then it became, they're not really demons. They're completely misunderstood. And then it became, they're our best friends.
Yeah.
We like them. We're hanging out. We're buddies now. To, I'm going to build altars and put demons on the wall, and I want to become more like them. I want to become a demon myself. Hey, see, it's the progression, right?
Yeah. And, I talk about this a lot when it comes to secrecy, and you've discussed that there's a lot of stuff that's passed down verbally that's not in books. And people, they come to me and they say, well, Joseph, if you're studying the occult and you're talking to occultists, don't you think that they're keeping secrets because they're trying to control the world or things like that? And I always tell them, no, because there's certain types of characteristics or people that aren't psychologically well that could dabble into these things if it goes out and it's not, some things really need to be guarded and treated with a certain respect. But still yet people think, well, all occultists are in secret societies to try to take over the world. And I don't believe that's the case at all.
No, I mean, come on. The job is already taken.
Yeah,
we're not the ones applying for it. The office is already filled, And whoever is in that office would not want a bunch of occultists taking over from their office. No, there's definitely a lot of issues that comes in our world that they are the visible and the invisible factors, And I think because people don't know who is really in control, they would like to assume, the scapegoat of the day, and sometimes occultists become the scapegoat of the day. But what it boils down to is that on some gut level, people feel something is just not right, and they don't know why it is.
Yeah.
We can argue from a nihilistic perspective or, a negative philosophical perspective and say, well, this is just nature, or, mankind's nature to be bad, mankind's nature to ravish and be violent and kill and murder and do all of that stuff. We can make this argument, but we have children, and we know from looking at our children that even when they're violent, if they hurt each other, their first instinct is to say, I'm sorry, and to kind of, and make nice. So we don't expect our children to take guns and kill each other. So why do we expect our adults to do that?
Yeah,
you expect the adults to grow more rational not become more violent and irrational. So while we accept this part of our nature as being part of society, sometimes we accept things that belongs to us that may not be us, right? And this goes back to the whole idea of nurture and nature and, visible factors and invisible factors. So people who are sensitive tend to get paranoid about it and go, there's something out there controlling us, making us do all this. It must be them or them or them. But they're wrong every single time about who they're pointing their finger at. I'll give you an idea of my latest, research. I've been doing some research lately on the moon.
Sweet.
And the reason is because the moon and the Jinn have a very interesting connection. And one that is almost never explored and never discussed in many of the texts. Now, you're probably familiar with the idea in esoteric literature about the mansions of the moon, right?
Yes.
And the Arabs wrote that when the moon is in a given mansion, a door opens and certain rays emanate. And depending on those emanating rays, you do different kind of magic. Mm-hmm. So if it's in, randomly, I'm going to throw this out. If it's mansion number 1, then the rays that come down from the moon will be good for acts of like war or, fever or, spell casting this and spell casting that. And that's the extent of what they talked about. You will not find anything further. Just this. The story ends with this story. When the moon is in this house or in this mansion, these rays will come down. In the Western literature, there's even a bit less information on it. We just have the names of the mansions and maybe the stars of the mansions, and that's it. We don't go anything further. Well, there's a reason for that. The reason for that is because the knowledge of the lunar gates, the doors that open and rays come from, is guarded by the Jinn. And they will not allow humans to access this knowledge.
Man, that's smart of him.
Well, I mean, do you think that's a good thing that they don't allow humans to access that kind of knowledge? Or
well, I don't know whether it is or it isn't. Now, I do know that I had a friend who has he's working with me with the Jinn, etc. And he asked the Jinn about a set of names that I got from another Jinn, and it's connected with the moon. And what that other Jinn told him, just simply, was that the last time a human being was in possession of this knowledge, and tried to use it, there was an explosion in Siberia.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so it's not something to be tampering with, right, at all.
That explosion in Siberia has been destroyed 18 million trees. And until now, trees don't grow in that area. Now, the rational explanation was a comet or a meteor hit that area and caused the effect.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, man.
Yeah. And until this moment, nobody's been able to identify this comet or find evidence of it. Yeah, it's a hypothetical, but there's no backing of it. It still is a mystery what happened then.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This was just not too long ago, right?
It was 100 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Within the last year or so?
No, it was...
A couple years ago?
No, 100.
No, 100 years ago. They have pictures of it where everything's... It's like a big circular thing where nothing can grow there,
I saw something on TV talking about that not too long ago.
Yeah.
I believe it was
and the reason for that is, and the Jinn are saying that a part of their tribe reside on the moon, and they don't want humans there.
Whoa. I wonder if it's the dark side of the moon, Nineveh, the side we don't see.
The dark side, exactly.
I wonder if that's
and they reside there, and they don't want humans to go there. They don't want humans on the moon. And some people speculate that this is the reason why we haven't been there to the moon again. That the astronauts made it there, and saw something or experienced something, and then they were sent back home. And that was the end of the story. Now we're talking Mars, we're talking here. The moon has become off limit to the human race.
Yeah, it is interesting that that's all you hear people talk about is Mars, space travel to other planets. But when you pull up moon videos, you hear Buzz and all them saying, "Hey, did you see that? What was that?" And it's all like a whole bunch of stuff. Nobody knows what the hell they were talking about, but they saw something,
Right, that's right. But this is from a physical perspective, but there's also the magical dimension of it. And whatever the magical dimension of it, the Jinn will not allow us to access. Now, remember I told you about my friend who was working and he got this, he was told about this explosion, right?
Right.
Well, I was like, cool, I'm going to find out exactly what the information was that we're being denied, and I'm going to investigate it. I'm going to try to get it back, and I'm going to try to use it and test it. Well, unfortunately, I used him as my assistant in the project, and it wasn't long before he literally quit doing magic altogether. And the reason for that was when he began to do the investigations with me on the lunar gates and the moon and stuff like this, he got a bunch of Jinn show up to him and say, "You crossed the line of what we permit you to do. And you will now cease and desist from performing all acts of magic. Nothing. Not a single ritual. Not a single prayer. You will completely quit. Everything." Well, at first he was like, "No, I'm not doing that." So
Did he actually hear them say this?
Oh yeah, they were pretty much present. And when he said no, every time he would chant a divine name or do a ritual or anything at all, not even Jinn related, could just be basic LBRP, whatever, he would start to bleed from his nose and from other parts of his body.
Oh. Yeah, they weren't playing
and
around with him.
And it would just stop when he stops. As long as he's doing magic, he's bleeding. When he stops, the bleeding stops.
The very second he stops?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Now, what really got him is he had his cat in the house with him, and his cat is an indoor cat, and he was alone in the house, and he woke up next day, and he found his cat dead in the kitchen. And the cat had died, and its neck has been broken and twisted around.
Oh, my gosh.
After that, he called me up and he said, "That's it. Here's my papers. I'm basically walking. I have kids. This is too dangerous. I'm not touching it no more. I'm leaving you."
He didn't even want to hang around for research reasons. He was done.
No. He still chat once in a while on Facebook, but pretty much he just gave it all up. After doing it on a daily basis for years, he just literally quit. I said to him, "Well, I have kids too, but I'm not quitting."
So you do. It seems like you're approaching this kind of scientifically, though, in a respectful way. And obviously, at that point, your friend probably, we all he didn't want to lose any power, because magic, when you think about it, it's personal power. And for an entity to tell you have no more magical power, you're not doing any of this stuff anymore. I mean, he said no. Let me tell you something. If something from another realm told me I'm not doing anything anymore like that, I wouldn't just fire back and say no. I would really think about before I said something,
Yeah, but I still don't think it would stop you.
I don't know, man.
I think maybe if you kept doing it and stuff happened to you, you would stop. But
now, this goes to my next question, and because we talk about the paranormal here quite a bit. Do you think that we've seen these lights and orbs and things like that we speak about, shadow figures with red eyes, that goes back in the 80s on the old Art Bell show? It's all over. This stuff is crazy. Do you think that some people have thought that the Jinn were actually, or labeled them ETs or possibly UFOs?
Well, there's two factors here. I mean, yes and no. The Jinn have ability to travel to space. Obviously, they're on the moon. So it's very possible that they have instruments of travel. And they definitely may have machines and stuff like this. There's a story that I tell, and, sometimes I'm told not to tell. A while ago, I think it was the early 2000 era, and we had an indoor cat, as a black indoor cat. It was my partner's cat, and we don't let the cats out at all, and our apartment wasn't very big, and the cat literally just disappeared. in the middle of the night. But earlier in that evening, we felt a Jinn in the house, right?
Okay.
And we knew it was there, and then he left. We thought he left. But then the cat also disappeared. So our first instinct was the cat was hiding. So we literally just tore up the apartment inside and out. We left nothing. We just checked everywhere. We called her name. We tried to, seduce her with food. That cat was simply not there. So the other assumption was the cat had, left the apartment somehow.
Right.
Managed to get herself an escape.
Mm-hmm.
So we went outside and we with our lights and stuff, and we looked everywhere for the cat. She literally was not there anywhere to be found. So at that point, we made a decision that, the cat is gone. And while my partner was very upset, and she was crying and despondent, and she wouldn't go to bed, and she was just kept on crying and crying, my baby, my baby, my baby, my cat, my baby cat.
Oh, I know the feeling.
Yeah. And I was like, what am I supposed to do here? So I decided that the best thing I can do is call my friend in California and see if he can talk to her, calm her down. Maybe he can say some soothing words, basically, because I'm not sure what to do to comfort her at that point. So it was 2 a.m, but I figured he'll understand, and I dialed his number, and he woke up, and his name is Larry, and he was actually part of the Golden Dawn in the past. And I said, "Hi, Larry." He said in a groggy voice, "They'll bring her back."
Oh.
I said, bring what back? The cat. They will bring your cat back. I said, how did you know the cat was missing? I said nothing to you about a cat. I just called. He said, I was dreaming. And in my dream, these beings came in my dream. And they had this weird machine that I've never seen. And they used the machine to take your cat. And they told me in the dream that you're going to call me. And you're going to wake me up. And you're going to ask me about the cat, and to tell you they're going to bring the cat back and she will be fine in a few hours. Now, can I go back to bed? I said, okay, Larry.
Right. Like he was half asleep telling you this stuff, right?
Yeah, he's half asleep telling me this stuff. I'm like, all right, Larry, go back to bed. Sorry to wake you up. And I'm like, what?
Right.
Improper words were used.
I bet.
Not suitable for the air. And then I went and I told my partner they will bring the cat back. Now, Jinn function between midnight and 5 a.m. That's tend to be their activity hour. They don't like to be active during daytime. So they're more like nighttime beings. So around 5 o'clock, we heard this loud meow, but it was very distant, like it's coming from a tunnel or a cave far away. So we rushed to the kitchen, and we were searching, calling the cat's name, Frisky, Frisky, Frisky. And then the meow got louder, and we kept calling his name, and the meow got louder and louder and louder, and we kept calling. And then, poof, out of thin air, the cat just appears in the kitchen beside us.
Huh. I've honestly had that happen with my cat too. That just shows up out of nowhere. To be honest with you, I have been gone.
Yeah, but we were right there in front of her, right? We were looking, and it just appeared out of thin air in front of our eyes.
Wow!
She didn't walk in. She didn't just appeared.
Y'all was like staring where. So you was like looking on the ground. Let's say you was looking on the ground, and all of a sudden it was there on the ground.
Yeah, he said he heard it far away, and then it just showed up.
Wow.
Yeah, just appeared out of thin air. It didn't just walk in from a room or walk in from a closet or a door. No, literally just appeared out of thin air right in front of us. And the cat was shaking like it was terrified half to death.
It's weird. We talked a lot about cats today. Just to off note here, it's National Cat Day today, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, it is. So love your cat, Leo. I love you, buddy. Give your cat some loving today.
Yeah, love your cat. Love your cat.
Oh.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
The thing is, they used machines, right? In his dream, they used machines. Now, this is an interesting idea because they didn't use magic to get the cat and to turn her back. They used machines that my friend said he never seen anything like. Now, if those machines exist, we don't know where they are or how they function, anything like that.
Yeah, that sounds kind of alienish, though. That goes back to, when people get abducted and stuff. It makes me wonder if some experiments weren't done by Jinn people, because people say, I've had a lot of weird and strange experiences in both dream state and in the astral state, and I've seen a lot of things in the astral realm that I can't even begin to explain with words. Black shadowy figures shoving me back into my body when I'm trying to get out, literally shoving me back in. And I was going to ask you if do these Jinn, do they possess the power to go in and out of both the physical and astral realms? Or maybe even a broader question would be, what kind of powers, if in your experience, do the Jinn possess?
They do appear in dreams, but if they are in your dreams, they're standing right next to you.
Oh, wow.
I had an encounter with a kind of an unfortunate back and forth with, I won't mention names, a magician who kind of dabbles a bit in the dark side. Mm-hmm. And every full moon, or every month, he would appear in my dreams in a very hostile way. And then I was talking to a bunch of my friends that know him, and I realized they too were getting him in their dreams once a month. And then we tracked the appearance of those dreams, and they were all on the full moon. So initially I had suspected those dreams were some unresolved, subconscious effect or whatever. But since they appeared to a bunch of us on the same day, full moon, I realized that this was more of an intentional act. Mm. So I don't know much about how to, dream magic per se. It was actually one of his areas of expertise that he was very proud of. So what I did is I called a genie and I said to this genie, this guy seems to be coming in my dreams in the full moon every month for the last 5 years. I would like this to stop. Can you help me out? And there was just a lot of an agreement. It's sort of like I felt that the Jinn was willing to cooperate. He said, just write my name on your hand and then fall asleep with it on your cheek, Put your hand under your cheek and kind of fall asleep like that. Huh. I said, fine, I will do that. So then on the full moon, I did that and I fell asleep. And that guy was in my dreams again, very hostile, very negative dream. When suddenly I felt the dream change. It wasn't a dream anymore. And I could feel an intruder in my dream. Like, literally, like there was two people in the dream, me and this other being. And I looked and I saw what looked like a shadow figure standing there, tall, and then he walked up to this guy, and I'm not dreaming at this point. At this point, I'm just observing. It's just weird, because it was a dream, and the dream kind of shifted, where I'm now really dreaming, but not dreaming. And he took the guy up, he lifted him up in the air, and I don't know what words of exchange were made, but I think there was an understanding that he will stop doing this. And then I woke up. And when I woke up, I actually felt the Jinn standing right next to me, almost touching me with his hand while I was sleeping. And then he left. I never had a recurring dream ever since.
Well, see, that's a good thing. See, that's not, we've been talking about a lot of bad and things and stuff, but obviously at this point, the Jinn had helped you,
exactly.
Possibly because you respect
them. Yeah. There's many times it helped me. And again, it boils down to which one you're working with. This particular genie I was working with was a benevolent kind. It wasn't an underworld one. Right?
Right. I get it.
So I chose one that was benevolent. So it was one of the many reasons I began doing my research and trying to compile as many names using the formulas in whatever way I can of benevolent Jinn that are completely safe, that you don't even need a protection circle around. They're that safe, that are friendly and helpful, because we've reached a stage now where we seem to believe that the only way to get results in magic is to work with things like Goetia and Underworld Jinn. That if you want things to happen to you, you got to turn that side. But yet when you hear the results of people, they're kind of sad. I mean, you hear things like, oh, I called on this demon and then I got $100 in the mail.
Wow.
Well, I'm sorry. That's nothing really.
Right.
Yeah, that's not impressive.
It's almost like the demon's laughing at you, like you didn't specify how much money. You just said you needed some money. So
even if they specified 100, that's still not very impressive. I can make 100. You know, in an hour. I didn't need a genie for that.
Right.
Now, I did use a Jinn once for money, and it was a case where something has happened. The account got drained, and I wasn't aware it was drained. And I had 24 hours to come up with rent money, and literally I only had like $20 in my account.
Oof.
And I was like, okay, I am now in deep trouble because I have one day to come up with like $1,000+, and I have $20 in my account. What do I do? And usually I don't resort to magic for money, but in this case I felt I had no choice. So I called on a Jinn, same one actually, that was protecting me in the dream, and I said, look, I usually don't ask you for help, but this is an emergency. Can you make sure I have money in the next couple of days, or else I'm going to be on the street? I really need your help on this one. And again, there was just a nod, and the thing left. Now, I had thought maybe, somebody will buy one of my books, or I'll be able to borrow some money, or the basic things people expect, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I went to the mailbox, and there was a letter from a group, I won't mention its name, an esoteric organization. And then I opened the envelope, and in it was a check for $5,000.
Wow.
Now, here's the wow point. The $5,000 was because they had made a decision that a set of books they had bought from me, a transaction that was completed over a year ago, okay, and they had received their books already a year ago, and they had paid for them a year ago, but they somehow decided that it was unfair, the price they paid for that, and that they still, to make it fair, they sent me the $5,000.
Man, that's awesome.
That's a trip, man. And there's a question in the chat room that wants to know, like, people have, they want to know, did anything bad happen after that point?
No.
Yeah, a lot of people think just because you're practicing magic or summoning something, that something bad is bound to happen to you every time.
No, not really. No, because nothing bad happened to me, no. Only good things happen, really, for the most part. But if you dabble in areas like the moon investigation, for example, the Jinn may react negatively. I've had negative reactions. But, because I've done that particular ritual, no, nothing bad happened. And I didn't target anybody with the spell. I simply asked the Jinn for help.
Yeah, and it's not like you do it every day. You're not taking advantage of it.
It's not like I do it every day. It was an emergency situation, and I said, could you help me out? Well, the way he figured he'd help me out is he will get that organization to pay me twice for a product they've already received.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
That is.
They didn't need to do it. I didn't ask them for anything. The transaction was done a year ago. We had no more contact. They just took the initiative.
That is cool. I bet that tripped you out when you saw that.
So we got.
Yes, it tripped me out.
Oh, I bet it did. Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
A $5,000 check, yes. 5 times more than he was asking for.
Yeah, enough to get you back on your feet and keep you ahead.
There would have been some Thanksgiving there.
Yes, sir.
For sure.
Yes, sir.
Now, we got about 5 minutes left here, and I really wanted to ask you, and I know we talked about this earlier, and this is the first time I've really talked to you, heard your voice besides on YouTube and some of your stuff with other organizations, but I want to get to ask you this. Is there any kind of magic that you are afraid of, that you fear? That you're worried about practicing?
Yes, there is.
Good. And you already discussed that actually earlier.
No, not the moon stuff. I'm scared of teleportation magic.
Teleportation magic?
Yes.
That sounds awesome.
Well, I don't know much about teleportation magic, honestly, and that's a hell of a thing to end the show on, because I'm sure that would be an interesting conversation, but I would imagine that I'd be afraid of that I wouldn't come back in one piece,
Like the fly?
Or I'd end up somewhere else,
Well, remember the story of the cat, right? There wasn't just only one case of it. I've witnessed a Jinn do this multiple times. And, and teleportation magic is terrifying because literally you have no control over where you're coming, over where you're going. And there are extensive amount of rituals dealing with teleportation magic in Arabic text. And the jinn they work with are very ancient, and I'm not 100% sure they're very safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very scared to dabble in that area. Because I just literally don't know where I'll show up. I don't want to be in the middle of the ocean, right? Or on the moon, for that matter.
Right. Yeah. Like, I can't breathe up here, man. This isn't cool.
Yeah.
This isn't cool. That's right. I can't breathe in here. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I think I'd about soon be on the moon than just stuck in the middle of the ocean.
Now, I know as when we talk about things like this that there's a bit of a responsibility, I feel, to any person that's interested in practicing magic. What advice would you have for a person that is thinking about, has read books and stuff, but they're thinking about actually practicing magic, you know? Do you have any advice for the beginner?
Right. My advice for the beginner is not to focus on material results, not to focus on the miraculous effects, not to focus on power, but to focus on building your spiritual status. The more you earn your spiritual credits, the more things will begin to open and unlock. The assumption that anybody can just pick up a book, summon spirits, and suddenly he's in control of the universe is not really true. You have to earn your street credit. And the best way to earn your street credits with the spirits, so to speak, or with the jinn, is to build your own personal inner power first from spiritual practices. I know it's boring, it's not as much fun, and, you don't get as much kind of, effects. But the more you do that, the more you will get results and success doing the other stuff. That would be my advice.
Right on. That's good advice. And where can anyone that's interested in finding your work, we have a link on the website, but there might be a couple other places. Where can people find your material online?
Well, they can find it on Amazon. They can find it on Ishtar Publishing. And my personal website is whitemagicmastery.com. I put all of my stuff there, too.
Yeah, and there's a really cool thing on YouTube I want you guys to check out. And I think it's by Magicians of the White Flame or something, where they do a decoding, like a geometrical decoding of...
Oh, right. Ziraja, right.
Yeah, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, where you can ask a question, and by using that, it'll answer you. So just, if you YouTube Nineveh Shadrach, you'll find it there. You'll see the little decoding thing, and it's really cool. And I want to say, Nineveh, I know it's early in the morning in the Philippines, where it's kind of getting close to noon, and I really appreciate your time, man. I hope you can come out one day and talk to us a little bit more in the future.
Anytime you want, brother.
Hell
Let
yeah.
me know.
Right on.
Man, it was awesome speaking with you, man.
Well,
thank you, brother.
That's it, folks. Tomorrow night, we're going to speak with Craig Narig from the Summer Wind Hauntings. He's going to discuss the Summer Wind Hauntings from the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters. And we're going to have some EVPs for you to listen to. And again, Nineveh, thank you for coming out, man. It's been a real pleasure.
Right. If you want an EVP... Oh, I lost him.
No, you're here, brother. You got some EVPs?
Yeah. I went to an island, and... I went to this island to do some Jinn magic, and it was an inhabited island. And when I finished doing my first ritual, and I was surrounded by hundreds of bugs. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of bugs. They came out of nowhere, literally from the ground up. I was swarmed all over. And later on, I decided I'm just going to record my trip walking around. Mm-hmm. But the area where I did that ritual, we were able to record a voice speaking Spanish.
Oh. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Maybe when you come back on, we can hear that, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks again,
Nineveh. Okay, guys. Talk to you later.
See you.
Bye, Nineveh.